Jai Om Vishnu Paramahansa Parivrajapachari Tulsi Srimad Bhakti Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Iskon Guru Vrinda ki Jai. Answer Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Tägliche Hari. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru Chidarananda Srila Prabhupada. Nö, ich muss leider öffnen. Oh, Dankeschön. Kann mir hier Beleuchtung machen, ist das okay. Das ist eine Kunst, ne? Mit dem Mikrofon. Aber es ist besser, hier das vorne hinzumachen. Das sollte man nicht so stark. Om Gyana Timarandasya Gananjana Sharakaya Shakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svavalantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragunatam Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadbaitam Savadutam Parijan Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganali Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vidam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tata Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vandavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpata Rupyashta Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayit Srimvatam Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Rityantastoya Bhadrani Vidunoti Saritsatam Nashta Payeshva Vadrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashluki Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki Om Tat Sat. So, very much welcome. Thank you again for this beautiful opportunity of being allowed to say something on Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna consciousness. Should I speak predominantly in English or in German?
English is fine.
English is better, I think, no? Then, okay. So today we read from the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 11, text 12. But before we do that, we will read a little bit from the Transcendental Diary. Travels with His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada from October 1976 to November 1976 bei Hari Shauri Prabhu. Vielen herzlichen Dank, Prabhu, sehr freundlich. So, Srila Prabhupada is still in Sri Vrindavan, and it is the 16th of November, 1976. Jagadish Prabhu spoke with Srila Prabhupada this morning concerning a complaint he has received from a 16-year-old girl about Bhagavatam. The girl claims that while she was over at Bhagavatam's house yesterday, he approached her in an overly familiar way. Jagadish questioned her closely, and it seems that in the course of joking with her, Bhagavatam touched her on the arm. The girl thought it improper and became disturbed. Thus her complaint. Srila Prabhupada frowned with concern and carefully considered the pros and cons. On the one hand, Bhagavatam is a portly, jovial man in his late 50s and well respected in Vrindavan. He is retired from work and household life, does regular puja, chants japa, and is dedicating much of his time to help Srila Prabhupada develop ISKCON in Vrindavan. He donated the land on which the Gurukul is being built, along with 1 lakh of rupees. His close association and daily input into our temple managerial affairs has improved our standing in the local Vrindavan community and helped smooth some of the ruffled relationships with local leaders. His house, just around the corner, has also become a bit of a refuge for devotees who want a short break from the rigors of temple life. He is happy for the company and allows free access when someone needs a temporary respite. He even allowed one of the French ladies, Kishori Dasi, the wife of Saurabha Prabhu and erstwhile cook for Srila Prabhupada, to stay with him when she was under stress. He is friendly and informal with all who come to him, has not a mean bone in his body, and has tremendous respect and veneration for Srila Prabhupada, whom he considers his Shiksha Guru. He is already initiated in another Vaishnava Sampradaya. No previous complaints have been lodged against him, and this one has come as a surprise. All in all, he does not seem a likely candidate for improper dealings. Then again, Prabhupada said that it would not be unnatural for a man to become attracted in the presence of a young woman. As far as the girl goes, she is young and inexperienced, especially here in India, and seems to not have any regular service in the temple. She has been going around to Bhagavatam's fairly frequently, and it could easily be that she has misinterpreted Bhagavatam's friendliness and familiarity. It is a delicate situation. After some discussion, Prabhupada finally decided that Jagadish Prabhu should speak privately with Bhagavatam. Prabhupada said that he can tell him that 1 complaint has been received, but we do not believe it, and Prabhupada has not been informed. In this way, he can discuss with Bhagavatam about allowing women to come to his house and instill some caution in him. This will save him from embarrassment and the feeling that he cannot again come before Srila Prabhupada. Jagadish also informed Prabhupada that the girl's visa is almost expired and that she will have to leave the country soon anyway. So Prabhupada told him that she should be sent to our London center forthwith and should not come back. A young
single girl in the Dham is not to his liking, because, as he said recently, single woman means with sex desire. He was not suggesting that the girl has done anything wrong, but that it is a human nature for a young woman to attract a man. Therefore, he said, the Vedic system is that every girl should be married by the age of 16. Having thus decided how to deal with Bhagaji, Srila Prabhupada relaxed on his asana and digressed a bit. He smiled broadly as he told us that his mother and father-in-law were married when they were 7 and 11 years old respectively, and that his own wife was 11 when they married. His mother married at 9, and when her daughter, Prabhupada's sister, was still not married at 12, she threatened his father, "If this girl is not married, then I shall commit suicide." Of course, she would never have done that, he said, but she made the threat because it was considered such a serious social obligation. Prabhupada said he was not even born when his older sister was married, and he remembers very clearly lying on her lap at the age of 6 months while she was knitting. His own daughter was married at 16, and by that point he had been feeling some anxiety that she was already getting past marriageable age. It was wonderful to hear Prabhupada share stories from his young life. We know little of his past except whatever he happens to reveal in these informal moments. He related that once in Calcutta, when he was very young, there was a big epidemic. Thousands were dying every day. So a prominent devotee there organized a huge Harinam Sankirtan party, and all the citizens of Calcutta, including Muslims and Christians, joined in. In this way, the epidemic was checked. Many different Sankirtan parties went out to all parts of the city, and many thousands of people decorated their homes and invited them in. Prabhupada's father also lit up their home with many lights and received the parties, and Prabhupada said that he remembered joining in, although he was so small he could only see their knees. But still he wanted to engage in the kirtan. Actually, Prabhupada has been suggesting to Bhagaji that he give up his family attachments, take sannyas and go to Hyderabad with us. He was formerly a farm manager and has helped us a lot here also. Prabhupada thinks he would be an ideal man to head up the farm project there. He is not at all keen to do this, however. He is very attached to being in Vrindavan and has already lamented, only half in jest, before Srila Prabhupada, "If you make me take sannyas, that means I will have to leave Vrindavan." He is reluctant to refuse Srila Prabhupada's request directly, but he has done everything possible to let Prabhupada know that his heart is not in it. I had occasion to go to his house recently, and I was surprised when he suddenly began to plead with me to petition Prabhupada on his behalf not to make him take sannyas and leave Vrindavan. I told him, "What is the harm? If we follow Prabhupada's instructions, that will only advance us in spiritual life." To which he replied rather emotionally, "I don't want to advance. I simply want to remain here in Vrindavan." I was quite disappointed in Bhagaji. The incident made me doubt whether he is as advanced a devotee as he has seemed. With the trip to Hyderabad to officially start the self-sufficient program on the farm, now confirmed, this is going to be a real test to see if he is as keen to please Srila Prabhupada as he says he is. Soll ich das nochmal auf Deutsch zusammenfassen oder wollen wir die Punkte, would we like to hear a summary or to point out particular remarkable fragments of this incident here.
You decide. You decide.
I'm your servant. So Srila Prabhupada here has received a complaint against one of Vrindavan's leaders, so to say, who was very favorable with the Krishna consciousness and with Srila Prabhupada, and has helped to smooth out the relationships in Vrindavan. And so there was a young girl apparently that felt improperly treated because this person, Bhagaji, touched her on the arm. So Srila Prabhupada considered the matter very carefully. And finally they decided that Jagadish Prabhu should speak privately with Bhagaji and not mention that there had been a complaint lodged against him in front of Srila Prabhupada, because if he would believe that, then he could become embarrassed and not want to come before Srila Prabhupada again. So Srila Prabhupada is very highly sensitive to dealing with other people. And he says that this 16-year-old girl, she should be sent to the London temple. Anyway, her visa is soon expiring here at this time. And then Srila Prabhupada also mentioned how in his own family the different people were married at very early age, and that when his daughter was already 16 years old, his wife was threatening him that if you do not marry that girl now to someone, I will commit suicide. She wouldn't have done that, Srila Prabhupada says, but still it is considered such a serious thing that the women are being protected. Here we can see that if there are single women, the material nature is such that men feel attracted by single women. If they are married, then maybe the attraction is still there, but it's not so prominent. And also for the women, it is more easy to focus upon one husband when they get married early. So in the Western countries, maybe we have the concept of child marriages being bad and they are forced or something. But we can see that is actually not the case in the proper Vedic high culture, even though sometimes the children are married very early, like his father and mother, 7 and 11 years old. Can you imagine to be married when you're still a child? It seems like, wow, so far out. But in this way, the two persons, they grow together and they learn to serve each other very homogeneously. And so the service stands in the center and not so much other features like bodily attraction or whatever, And then here, Jagadish Harishari Prabhu, he is also thinking a little bit further that Srila Prabhupada suggested that Bhagaji could consider to take up sannyas, but that Bhagaji was very much attached in being in Vrindavan, so much so that once when Prabhuji visited him, he even directly told him, he petitioned him, please, let Srila Prabhupada not make me accept sannyas, So, and then Harishari Prabhu, he felt doubts arising in his consciousness that, maybe this person is not as advanced a devotee as he had seemed to him. So this is a very nice bridge to what we will discuss today, because the Srimad Bhagavatam verse is about Nitya Siddha and Nitya Baddha devotees. So there are different grades of devotees. And I would like to focus this class more on this topic. Because we need, as devotees, also to develop our discrimination and how to deal properly with the respective types of the devotees, and yeah, like that. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Kshetragya eta manaso vibhutir. Jivasya maya rajitasya nitya. Avihita kvapi tirohitascha. Shudho vichaste yavishuddha kartu. Kshetragya eta manaso vibhutir. Jivasya maya rajitasya nityaha. Avihita kvapi tirohitascha. Shudho vichaste yavishuddha kartu. Prabhuji. Kshetragya eta manaso vibhutir. Jivasya maya rachitasya nityaha. Avihita kvapi tirohitascha. Shudho vichaste yavishuddha kartu. Kshetragya eta manaso vibhutir. Jivasya maya rachitasya nityaha. Avihita kvapi tirohitascha. Shudho vichaste yavishuddha kartu. Kshetragya eta manaso vibhutir. Jivasya maya rachitasya nityaha. Avihita kvapi tirohitascha. Shudho vichaste yavishuddha kartu. Kshetragya eta manaso vibhutir. Jivasya maya rachitasya nityaha. Avihita kvapi tirohitascha. Shudho vichaste yavishuddha kartu. Someone else? Willst du mal? Kshetragya eta manaso vibhutir. Jivasya maya rachitasya nityaha. Avirhita kva pritirohitascha Trudhu vichaste yavishuddhakatu Patita pavana shishiguni taiki Kshetragya, the individual soul. Etaha, all these. Manasaha, of the mind. Vibhutihi, different activities. Jivasya, of the living entity. Maya Rajitasya, created by the external material energy. Nityaha, from time immemorial. Avihitaha, sometimes manifested. Kvapi, somewhere. Tirohitaha, cha, and not manifested. Shuddha, purified. Vichaste, sees this. He, certainly. Avishuddha, unpurified. Kartuhu, the doer. The individual soul bereft of Krishna consciousness has many ideas and activities created in the mind by the external energy. They have been existing from time immemorial. Sometimes they are manifest in the awakening state and in the dream state, but during deep sleep, unconsciousness or trance, they disappear. A person who is liberated in his life, Jivan Mukta, can see all these things vividly. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 13.3, Kshetragyam chapimam vidhi sarvakshetreshu bharata, there are two kinds of Kshetragya, or living beings. One is the individual living being, and the other is the supreme living being. The ordinary living being knows about his body to some extent, but the Supreme Paramatma knows the condition of all bodies. The individual living being is localized, and the Supreme Paramatma is all-pervading. In this shloka, the word Kshetragya refers to an ordinary living being, not the Supreme living being. This ordinary living being is of two kinds, Nityabada or Nityamukta. One is eternally conditioned and the other eternally liberated. The eternally liberated living beings, das Deutsche ist hier, guck mal. Entschuldige. Wir hatten spontan entschieden, dass es eine englische Sprache sein soll. The eternally liberated living beings are in the Vaikuntha Jagat, the spiritual world, and they never fall into the material world. Those in the material world are conditioned souls, Nityabada. The Nityabadas can become liberated by controlling the mind, because the cause of conditioned life is the mind. When the mind is trained and the soul is not under the mind's control, the soul can be liberated even in this material world. When it is liberated, one is called Jivan Mukta. A Jivan Mukta knows how he has become conditioned. Therefore, he tries to purify himself and return home back to Godhead. The eternally conditioned soul is eternally conditioned because he is controlled by the mind. The conditioned state and liberated state are compared to the sleeping, unconscious state and the awakened state. Those who are sleeping and unconscious are eternally conditioned, but those who are awake understand that they are eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Therefore, even in this material world, they engage in Krishna's service. As confirmed by Srila Rupa Goswami, Iha Yasya Hare Dasye, if one takes to Krishna's service, he is liberated, even though he appears to be a conditioned soul within the material world. Jivan Mukta Sa Uchyate. In any condition, one is to be considered liberated if his only business is to serve Krishna. So again the verse. Kshetragya etam manaso vibhutir Jevasya maya rachitasya nityaha Avyahitakva pitiro hitascha Shudho vichashte yavishuddha kartuhu. The individual soul bereft of Krishna consciousness has many ideas and activities created in the mind by the external energy. They have been existing from time immemorial. Sometimes they are manifest in the awakening state and in the dream state, but during deep sleep, unconsciousness or trance, they disappear. A person who is liberated in this life can see all these things vividly. This time I would like to make it a little different. Do you already have some things that were mentioned here from either the verse or Srila Prabhupada, or the word-by-word translation, of course, that catch your attention, that you would like to have more elaboration on? Maybe I repeat the essential points so that we can then have more of a discussion. So here, Jada Bharat is telling King Rahugana, Maharaj Rahugana, that the living entity without Krishna consciousness has many ideas and activities which are created in his mind by the external energy, by the material nature. And he says that these activities, they have been there since time immemorial in the awakening and in the sleeping state, but in the dream state, but not in the sleep state or trance. And that Jivan Mukta, a liberated person, can actually see all these things very clearly. We can have clear discrimination. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, first of all, makes a distinction between the individual soul and the super soul, Paramatma. And he says that in this shloka, the word Kshetragya refers to an ordinary living being, not to the supreme living being. So to Jiva soul, to one of us, Nitya Bada or Nitya Mukta. And then he's explaining this is two categories of the Jiva. They can be eternally liberated or eternally bound up, eternally conditioned. And he starts to speak a little bit about the symptoms of a liberated person. And he says that they never fall into the material world. Basically, they are always in the spiritual world. And then he says that the Jivan Mukta knows how he has become conditioned, and therefore he is very careful to purify himself and to return back to Krishna. Whereas the eternally conditioned soul, or Nityabhada, is basically controlled by the mind. In the Bhagavad Gita, there is one verse that comes to my mind, where Lord Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that a Krishna conscious person is single-pointed. He has one focus to serve Krishna. But a materially minded person is like Bahu Shaka. He has thousands of interests. Like a Shaka means twig or branch of a tree. A tree has many branches. So our interests in the material world, when we are conditioned, can be of many, many different interests. But they can also lead in different directions, not necessarily all to Krishna. So you have to be very careful about that. And then Srila Prabhupada concludes by saying that a person who is fully engaged in Krishna consciousness is also counted as Jivan Mukta, because his only business is to serve Krishna, and he's in this way quoting Srila Rupa Goswami, Iha yasya hare arasye. Yeah. So these are the main points. Would we like to discuss particular points, or should I speak now something about what I prepared about Nitya Siddha and different symptoms? I find there's we could discuss in two directions. One is to develop the proper discrimination between Nitya Siddha, Nitya Bhakta, Nitya Bhada, so that we can understand how we can progress through the different stages, so that we know where we are, what to do. That would be one approach. Another thing which is mentioned here, another nice point in the verse, is also that Srila Prabhupada is explaining that Nitya Bhada means that one is conditioned by the mind. When the mind is controlling the conditioned soul, then the person is conditioned. What do you say? Yeah, both. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let me see if the computer is working.
Because here it's in purport, it says that it's really important to find a person who is not bonded, and we need to know the symptoms how to find this kind of person. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also, as I understood, we need to understand what we need to do just to not to be conditioned with our mind.
To control the mind, not to be controlled by it.
Yeah, like I told yesterday.
Thank you very much. So I found out something very nice on Vedabase, where Srila Prabhupada is also speaking about this. Krishna. Let's see. In Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada's book, The Nectar of Instruction, which I have now here in German language, there's also discrimination between the different stages of a devotee. Do we have an English one also? No, huh? Maybe in the library. Let's see, maybe I read Srila Prabhupada's that I have here. No, it's okay. I think this is okay. Thank you very much, Prabhu. So this is from the Nectar of Devotion, a lecture from Srila Prabhupada. And so he's also speaking about Mahabhagavata. Mahabhagavata is a synonym of Nitya Siddha. It means a great devotee, not a normal devotee, but like a huge personality. And so I will read something about what Srila Prabhupada has to say here about the different stages. So Bhakti, devotional service, begins when one is actually self-realized. Before that, Sabhakta Prakrita Smritaha, Srimad Bhagavatam 11:2-47. Anyone who has got the identification of this body, he is engaged in deity worship, but he does not actually realize his self. He does not know who is a devotee, and he does not know his duty to other persons. He remains a Prakrita Bhakta. Prakrita Bhakta means he is situated on the material platform, but under the direction of the spiritual master, under the direction of Shastra, he is trying to improve his condition of material existence. That is called Prakrita Bhakta, Sabhakta Prakrita Smritaha. So that means in the beginning, when we come to Krishna consciousness, maybe, of course, Krishna consciousness is the nature of the soul, and according to one's previous developments, one gets a body and starts the process at that point. So it's not for everyone the same. If we come to Krishna consciousness, somebody may have been a Goswami already in a previous life and still have, I don't know, something to do or some lesson to learn. And then when he comes to Krishna consciousness, it's like bright candle immediately shining. Whereas another person may be exactly the opposite, may just have gotten prasadam the first time, be completely dull, maybe a drunkard or something, So the candle there's much more smoke than light. Like we heard previously from the candle, which docht is burned improperly, which this, I don't know how in English is docht. So, but Prakrita Bhakta basically means he does not have developed a proper discrimination yet. He only sees himself or herself and Krishna, the deity, the guru, and he's accepting this, this kind of exchange. But he does not know how to behave properly with the different living entities that are there. Who is a devotee, who is not a devotee. So, and this is also what Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada is explaining here in this book. So, a Prakrita Bhakta basically is offering obeisances to the deity in the temple and is worshipping him. No, he's chanting the holy name actually. I think this is verse 4. He started to accept chanting the Maha Mantra. So that is Prakrita Sahaja. Anyway, so we should not remain perpetually a Prakrita Bhakta. We must improve Madhyama Bhakta. Madhyama Bhakta means he knows what is God, what is Krishna. He knows what is Krishna's devotee, he knows the people in general, and he knows the atheistic persons. 4 categories of persons manifest before him. It is not that artificially, if we say that, in my view, everyone is the same. That is, of course, higher stage. Pandita Samadashinaha. Bhagavad Gita 5:18. But we should not imitate that stage, because we are in the neophyte stage. We should not imitate the vision of Mahabhagavat. So here we hear of the Madhyama Adhikari. Madhyama means in the middle. And so this second category of devotee, he already sees 4 categories of persons. First of all, he sees Bhagavan, Krishna. He knows who is a devotee. Then he also knows who is an atheist and the innocent person. And then, of course, he behaves differently because of that knowledge. There's a discrimination, how to serve each other. Srila Prabhupada will mention that also later. Mahabhagavata does not see anyone non-devotee. He sees everyone is better devotee than himself. Just like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Purishera Kitamuni se lagishta, Jagamatai haitamuni se papishta. Adilita 5:205. So he is not pretending. Actually, a Mahabhagavata thinks like that I am the lowest. But he is the highest. One who thinks like that, humble, Trinada pi sunichina, Tarora pi sahishnuna, Amanina manadena. That is in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adilita 17:31. He wants to give respect to everyone, but he does not expect any respect for himself. That is Mahabhagavat. And if one wants respect for him, that means he is still in Kanishta-adhikari. A Mahabhagavata is ready to give respect even to the end, and for himself he does not want any respect. That is Mahabhagavat. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches, Trinada pisa nichena, Tarora pisa hishnana amanina. For himself he does not require any respect. Manadena. But he is ready to give respect to everyone, even to the end. That is Mahabhagavat. So generally we are in the lower stage of devotional service. Just like generally people come to offer respect to the deities in the temple, but one does not know how to give respect to the devotee. How to help others to become a devotee. They are in the lowest stage. A devotee should not only give respect to the devotee, but he should try to make others a devotee. That means preaching. The preaching, what is the meaning of this preaching? People are engaged in material activities, and the preacher should approach them that you are spoiling your time, my dear sir. You become devotee of Krishna. This is preaching. You are simply spoiling. You have got this human form of life, but you are utilizing like animals, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. You may be a very great political leader, but your engagement is like animal. That is the fact. Anyway, so the Kanishta Adhikari is just learning how to become a devotee, and he is, by regulative principles, engaged in deity worship, and gradually he is raised to the platform of Madhyama Adhikari. And Madhyama Adhikari means he knows what is the position of God. Krishna, what is the position of devotee? What is the position of people in general? And what is the position of an atheist? Atheists there are. So Ishvaratat Adhina, or the devotees. Ishvaratat Adhina Balisha. Balisha means innocent person. And Ishvaratat Adhi Bali Dvishatsu. Dvishat means envious. There are many persons you have experienced. As soon as they hear something about God, they become immediately irritated. That is called Dvishatsu, demon. So a Madhyama Adhikari devotee can see these four kinds of persons. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, his devotees, and innocent persons, and the atheist class, demons. So he treats all these four classes. So he, Ishvare Tat Adhina, so prema. He tries to love God. So now comes how he treats the persons differently. Madhyama Adhikari, he tries to love God, prema. He sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, his business with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is how to increase his love for the Supreme Personality. That is one business of the Madhyama Adhikari. And how to make friendship with the devotees. Loving God, Krishna, and making friendship with devotees. Who is a devotee? Not to become envious of the devotees, but to make friendship. If the devotee is Uttama Adhikari, he should take lessons from him. If he is equal, then he should make friendship with him. And if he is lower, then he should try to help him to become higher devotee. This is the business of devotee. Ishvare tattatineshu balisheshu rishatsucha. Ishvara, to love Krishna, how to increase. Yato bhaktiya thokshaje. Srimad Bhagavatam 126. Simply to increase how I can better render better service to Krishna. This is one business. The another business is to make friendship. Anyone who is a devotee, to make friendship with him. And other, balisheshu, those who are innocent, those who are not offender, but innocent persons, just like a child, simple, they should preach amongst them Krishna consciousness, because they are innocent. And those who are dvishat, demons, simply against God, they should avoid them. Avoid them, don't go there for preaching, neither to love them. Of course, everyone should be loved, but according to the time and circumstances. So for a preacher who is trying to do good for the innocent persons, one who does not know how to love God, what is God, a preacher's business is to teach him, and not to waste his time with demons. One is not interested in the matter of God. But when one is raised to the highest platform of devotional service, then there is no more dvishatsu, no more friend, no more dvishat. Everyone, and Bhagavata sees that everyone is engaged in the service of the Lord, except myself. That is Mahabhagavata's vision. But we should not imitate that. Just like I was giving the example of Chaitanya Chaitamrita author Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. He is speaking that Jagai Madai Haite Muni Se Papishta Purishera Kita Muni Se Lagishta. He is not imitating, or he is speaking falsely. He feels like that. A Mahabhagavata feels like that I am the lowest. Just like Bhakti Vinod Thakur has sung, Amara Jivana Sada Pape Rata Nahika Punyara Lesha. He says like that my life is always engaged in sinful activities. I have not a trace of pious activity. Amara Jivana Sada Ape Rata Nahika Punyara Lesha. I have given so much distress to all other living entities. He is representing common man, but he is feeling like that. It is not that artificially speaking, he is feeling like that. Just like Radharani. She thinks always herself as the lowest of the devotees. She thinks always. She sees always that the gopis, other gopis, they are better qualified to serve Krishna. And she is not qualified. So much qualified. Therefore, in Vrindavan, you will find the devotees approach Radharani. Jai Radhe! Because if Radharani advocates for him to Krishna, it is very easily accepted. And Radharani says, if Radharani is pleased, then she represents the devotee's case that he is a devotee. He is better than me. Kindly accept his service, Krishna. So Krishna cannot deny. So Mahabhagavata, Radharani is Mahabhagavata. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so now he speaks about Mahabhava. Anyway, but therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the best example is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is Krishna himself, but he is playing the part of Mahabhagavat. He never discussed Krishna's Rasa Leela publicly. He never discussed. You won't find any time that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is discussing Rasa Leela publicly. No, never. He simply dealt with ordinary persons by chanting Hare Krishna mantra. And whenever there were scholars, there were philosophers, just like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Prakashananda Saraswati, he talks with some philosophy, Vedanta Sutra. And when there was high-class devotee, like Ramananda Roy, he discussed about Krishna Leela. You will find this. Not that with everyone he discussed Krishna Leela, no. Neither he discussed philosophy with everyone. Anyway, so I think that this was already pretty elaborate. And we got some impression by His Divine Grace's lecture on the different stages of the devotees and how the devotee treats, first of all, perceives the world differently. No, he sees himself as the lowest, and he feels like the lowest, and he feels himself quite inadequate to preach, even though he has developed the proper discrimination and everything. And therefore, normally, Mahabhagavata he is not supposed to preach. But we can see that sometimes such Mahabhagavatas like Srila Prabhupada, they step down from this exalted position, and for the sake of teaching us conditioned souls about Krishna consciousness. And we can see that the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, they are also being praised in this song, Shri Shri Shat Goswami Astaka, that they also did that. No? They were very highly educated, high-positioned ministers in the government of the ruler, of the Muslim ruler at that time, Hussein Shah. And they had like posts like prime minister or posts like that, and they earned a lot of money. They were leaders of the society, very great leaders. And then they is said in the song, they accepted loincloths, from having everything to nothing, to be a beggar in the street, so to say. Not only having enough to properly cover the body, basically, just one kopin and one maybe gamsha or something, or blanket. And why? For the sake of delivering Krishna to us, like the postman. Ne? So this is a very nice song, actually, Shri Shri Shat Goswami Ashtaka. And once I heard one Srila Prabhupada disciple, one sannyasi, I'm not sure exactly who was it, but he said that if we want to become preachers, we should sing that song regularly. We should recite that song very regularly. Because the mood is being set of a preacher. And they were always absorbed. Where is Krishna? Where is Radha? Always absorbed in thoughts of them and how to better serve them. And at the same time, they were very accessible to other people. They were elevating them to the platform of devotional service. In different ways, by engaging the Kanishta Adhikari in deity worship, the Madhyama Adhikari maybe in cultivating the community or whatever, And Srila Prabhupada, as we heard today in this Transcendental Diary, he is also setting that example as a Bhagavata person himself, sent by Lord Krishna, so Mahabhagavata. So he sets the example how to properly treat other devotees. He's very cautious, very careful. What could the effect be of that disruption, of this young girl who lodged a complaint against Bhagaji, right? So we can see what is the consciousness of a Mahabhagavata. It's like very much concerned, about keeping the devotees in devotional service. Srila Prabhupada, he said that I've spent gallons of blood to make one devotee. So he was always very regretful if he saw some devotee leaving, Especially when there was some offense against the devotees, he did some mistake and he was publicly criticized, and then he felt so much ashamed that he could not come back. So Srila Prabhupada felt very much grieving, for that loss. And so we see that the Madhyama Adhikari, understanding that there's 4 different categories of living beings, the Supreme Lord, the devotees, and also the innocent people and the atheists, he behaves differently. He has compassion for those who are not as much advanced as he himself is. That means he's giving them Krishna consciousness, giving them service opportunities. And at the same time, those who are on the same level, he's developing friendship with them. Not dvishat, not envy. Dvishatsu. So he's not envious that, this person is better than me, and I have to make competition, like in the material world, we can see that. It's a very common notion, but he's actually making friendship with them, And a person who is more highly elevated than himself, he wants to serve that person. That is the proper discrimination of a Madhyama Adhikari. And Srila Prabhupada wants all of us to come from the platform of Kanishta Adhikari to the level of Madhyama Adhikari at least. And how can we come also to the platform of Nitya Siddha or Mahabhagavat? How can we come to that liberated stage? Basically by association with such a devotee. When we hear this book, this is association with the Mahabhagavat. When we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, this is also association with different Mahabhagavatas like Prahlad Maharaj and other people like that. Other great elevated devotees. And so by following their instructions and doing regulated service and learning this science of devotional service to practice it and apply it in our daily life, we can become gradually elevated to see the things as they are, and then hopefully by the mercy of one of Krishna's close associates, we will also be accepted in the more intimate types of devotional service. And but everything of this is based on controlling the mind. And actually I liked yesterday Tanya's remark when we had watched Srila Prabhupada's class, and she shared that whenever she feels the mind is going crazy, she just sees within herself that image of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is holding the reins of Arjuna's chariot. And I was thinking, yes, this is such a beautiful way to actually control the rascal mind, isn't it? Because there's another picture in Bhagavad Gita, or in some editions of Bhagavad Gita, where there are the 5 senses depicted as horses, the mind is the reins, and then the intelligence is the driver of the chariot, and the soul is the seated person. So I really like that. So everything depends on us controlling our mind, controlling our lower tendencies, and becoming more and more happy and elevated in devotional service in this way. So thank you very much. Now it's again 9 o'clock, past 9 o'clock. I wanted to speak shorter, but I don't know. Do you have questions or comments?
My question is referring to the last sentence you just read. What is he referring to? Like, to see everything vividly? Is it in a sense of seeing this material appearances vividly, or seeing even the spiritual things vividly?
Everything. There's one Sanskrit verse, but I don't know the Sanskrit, which says that when we are fully Krishna conscious, like when the light is there, naturally all the darkness disappears. Like when the sun rises, there cannot be any darkness remaining. So Lord Chaitanya, he gave the example once. He spoke to the Mayavadi sannyasis, and he told them, that was after he listened to Prakashananda Saraswati, I think, or was it Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya? One of those two. He was listening to them because they felt, this is such a young sannyasi. Lord Chaitanya was just 24 when he accepted sannyas, and he's so handsome, and I need to protect him by teaching him Vedanta. So then this person, he was speaking the philosophy of Vedanta philosophy to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but in a Mayavadi way. And so Lord Chaitanya just listened, for several days. I think he was sitting and listening without saying anything. And then the sannyasi, he finished his elaboration, and he said, okay, now I have spoken so much about Vedanta Sutra and everything, and you did not ask anything. And then Lord Chaitanya, he said, the Vedanta Sutra is as shining as the sun, is self-illuminated like the sun. But your explanations are like clouds, in front of the sun. So, when we get the light of the Vedas, like Srimad Bhagavatam, and how the perfect devotee lives, we can see the example of Srila Prabhupada, everything becomes clear and bright. Das Licht geht an, da sieht man alles. Therefore it's so important to have the both. Srimad Bhagavatam and to see how Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavata person lives that. The book Bhagavata and the person Bhagavata. And das Guru Sadhu Shastra ist deckungsgleich. So it's, how you say, it's conform, it's like, and for us to follow, very practical. So he sees everything, material and spiritual. Ultimately, there's nothing like really, material in the sense of being disconnected from Lord Krishna. Even the material, so-called material creation, I was thinking yesterday when we were hearing from Jagat, how the whole universe is being emanated by, on the Lord's spiritual potency. But it is being mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam how the Lord himself, from his different limbs, is manifesting the different planets, the different devatas and everything, and still everything in the beginning is lifeless. Only when the Lord enters in the universe as the super soul, the things start to evolve, So the Lord is giving his own energy, Krishna is giving his own whatever energy for the so-called material creation, but it is his energy, So how can it be separate from him? Actually, material is rather referring to our perception. When we see things disconnected, that is material. But everything ultimately is spiritual. And it's been described also that the Mahatattva, the Ursuppe, you could say, the original substance in the universe, is being covered by one cloud. So this cloud is Maya, so to say, this illusion of being disconnected. Alles klar? Good. Another question or comment? Okay, very good. And Dankeschön. Thank you very much for your attention and for your enthusiasm to understand the devotional path and Srimad Bhagavatam, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Falls jemand das lesen möchte, das ist Vers number 5, and the nectar of instruction is more on this different sentence. But now it was in German. So.